Number 5, action is necessary or appropriate on matters discussed in executive session. Ms. Gardner, I'm sorry, I looked both ways.
I have a motion I'd like to make.
Okay.
I move that we terminate our contract with Compass Financial Advisors and enter into a 3-year agreement with 30 days cancellation provision with First Tryon Advisors for financial advising debt management services.
Okay, is there a second? Ms. Huddle seconds. Now discussion. You want to start yours?
The reason I make this motion is because I feel like our board, we're more hands-on than some other boards have been, and I like that we have the ability to be hands-on and see the numbers and run the numbers ourselves. And I like the program that First Tryon had for us to help us to figure out, how we'd like to have our debt service work and how we would be able to keep our millage rate where we want it. And I appreciate their desire to earn our business and the set rates that they've put forward. And I think it's time for our school district to try something different, because I'm not sure what's been working till now won't work for this board because we're so hands-on.
Okay. Any other? Ms. Huddle?
I seconded the motion for a couple of reasons. One is I echo Ms. Gardner's comments. I like the clarity of their model and the ability to share it with the public live and look at different scenarios and not have to wait for those scenarios. Also, the fee structure with Tryon in most scenarios looks like it's going to be a lower fee structure for us. And also, no matter what we do tonight, I want to, thank everyone that's been involved as well as the administration, because back when we met on this, I think it was in April, the quote for the refunding bonds, which is one of our most immediate needs, the fee structure was $75,000 from Compass. And after we went through this, we got a lower offer from Tryon and an even lower offer from Compass. So I think the fact that we challenged this, questioned it, looked at it, did result in lower fee structure for us for both the refunding bonds as well as I mentioned, I believe First Tryon's fee structure will be less for us on the other bonds.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Lovelace?
I see Mr. Nurtek is here, correct? My question to you, Compass quoted a scope of work on April 26, 2021, and I think that just the other day on September 17, 2021, you provided another quote. Okay. Were the scopes of work of those two 2021 quotes the same, exactly the same?
Sure, come to the mic.
Discounted quote in consideration to try and win you over and keep your business. And so we would do the refunding at that discounted quote that we provided you.
Okay, so the scope of work stayed the same, but the amount of money you charged us went down the second time around. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, we're offering a discount on the refunding and in consideration of the longer term capital plan that we discussed.
Okay, all right. Well, to the board, my take on this is that, we've heard all how we're such valued customers and so forth. I have a real hard time with if we were so valued, we should have gotten the best price to begin with because we were a paying customer then. And, when you last Monday, we could have made a decision in a board meeting. And that board meeting, in that board meeting, we took a vote, and I think it was, I don't remember, but 3-3 tie. And therefore, we expressed a need for this board meeting. And Compass had its quote in from April 26th. We had a quote in that was delivered that day from Tryon. That was the 13th. And then, because we held the meeting over, it appears to me that Compass went back and revised their quote, which, I mean, I believe in level playing fields, and there's one thing here that I do not understand, and I guess it's just because financial advisors don't have to go through the same process that others do, but I don't understand why our procurement department is not involved and why we don't have a set cutoff period of time for proposals, and why somebody would be allowed to, after the fact, change their proposal when, to me, they should have all been in as of the whatever time on Monday, this past Monday. So I believe in level playing fields, and I don't like that kind of thing, and it's just, to me, that's the reason why I would not support that situation.
Well, and I'd like to also to point out that we've had a contract with Compass. I don't know if it started in 2017, but the one that we're under right now, we're noticing that there were at least two different times, I might have to be corrected on that the fees from the financial advisors were raised, and that was never brought to the board. And I wonder, if we go, I need clarification on this. If we go into a contract, what prevents those fees from being raised without the board's knowledge or about what's going on with Compass? Because that could happen again. Obviously, they can drop their fees and then raise them again if we're not involved. So would that be something we could work out with the contract, or is that something we can trust? I don't know who can answer that question. I don't even know who to ask it of.
Ms. White, she can answer that.
And I can't speak to what was going on in 2016 when that contract was entered into and then the fees have gone up. But with this particular board, I know that y'all are slowly looking at all of these contracts that you have where there have been indefinite terms and making those term-specific contracts. And so if it turns out that Compass remains the financial advisor of the board, or if you hire First Tryon, either way, that we need to have in the contract, it needs to be a definite term, and it also needs to have provisions in there that if there is if they are seeking an increase in fees, that must come before the board for the board to approve that, rather than simply the administration checking off on that it would require board approval.
Am I correct in assuming that, I think we as far as we know, we checked back, but I know one member of the board did, that this contract was never voted upon with Compass anyway? Has never been approved by the board?
That's what it appears to be. Now, I haven't sat down and gone back and looked through all the minutes. And the other thing I think you would have to look at, let's say that the board never voted on the contract with Compass. I think the next thing to look at would be look at whether the board at some point in time gave power to the administration under your procurement code to enter into contracts up to a certain amount. So that could be what happened as well.
Well, I have a question about that. I mean, just because somebody in the past, approved a contract that may or may not have been, what they were supposed to do, does that mean that if this body were to have a hung decision, basically, that contract should be allowed to stand? Because if it was never approved by the board, why do they have a contract?
Well, again, I think what you'd have to do is go back and look and see what power the board might have given the administration to enter into those contracts. And generally speaking, boards do inherit the the liabilities and obligations of prior boards. That's something that, until y'all change it by an affirmative action of the board, that remains an obligation of the board. I think Ms. Huddle has a question, Ms. Hammond.
Correct me if I'm wrong, excuse me, but I don't think boards can overrule the procurement code. The code's set by the state of South Carolina, correct?
It depends on, y'all have your own procurement code.
But it still has to be consistent with theirs, right?
And it cannot, you can have, there are certain things that you have to be consistent with the state procurement code, but then you have some latitude if you have adopted your own procurement code. And I do know that at some point in the past few years that, just from my research, that the board had given the administration more power under the procurement code than what a lot of other districts.
But the current procurement code under Section 710 is where the exemptions are for financial consultants and advisors. And under the current procurement code, it says subject to board approval. So we would have to go back and see, was that in effect in 2016?
Was that done or not? What was in place in 2016?
But the fact remains, as far as we know, that contract and the rate changes were never approved by the board.
That's what it appears at this point in time.
I would like to say for this board, I'd be the only one that was on this board then. And there was a certain amount, if I'm remembering correctly, there's a certain amount of latitude that I was never privy to because I wasn't in the in group to know that if administration or the board officers approved something. So I don't know, I can't answer that. I mean, it's a good question. I just assumed we had a contract and then it was rolled over each year unless we changed it. That was my assumption. I would say that I appreciate everybody's views. I also appreciate both groups being here. And I think that both groups are really good and offer us important services that we certainly need. And I would echo the fact that the past leadership of this board, to me, did not do everything in the daylight. I definitely felt like that. And so I do appreciate this board. And I agree with Dr. Ross, it's a hard-working board because we want to do what's right for the people. And every dollar we save, I do realize, goes to the classroom. I don't know that I completely fault Compass, who we've done business with, because they had to take leadership from a board that maybe wasn't very diligent in overseeing. I really think that that's one reason this board changed. So, but I also look at the services we get. I want to look at what, and I know they don't want to be put on the spot, but I also have talked to our staff and what they feel might be best. I know we can't lose with either one of these companies, but I just am saying I don't necessarily blame a company that's doing the work for us when there's been a board that did not oversee and answer questions. I want to make that clear. So is there any other statement, anybody, before we put this motion to a vote? No one? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. And that's 3. All those opposed? So we have a 3-3. So we've got to have some type of conclusion to this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we terminate the original contract with Compass and amend the contract to a 3-year agreement with a 30-day termination clause and a fee structure clause regarding board approval for any change in the fee structure.
And there's a second, Mr. Hogan. Would you like to address your motion?
Yes. I agree with, this is a really difficult decision. I think that both financial advisors presented great plans, and it's a difficult decision for me personally because I see value and merit in all of the concerns that my fellow board members share and that the administration has shared. I think that it is important that we do not have an indefinite contract regardless of who the advisor is or really anyone. Any contract that we have should not be an indefinite contract. I think that we should have the responsibility to review who we're using and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. One of the things that I've heard over the last several months when we've had Compass speak is that I feel like maybe in the past the board has not been clear in expectations or desires of what we wanted to do. And even in the last few months, maybe we haven't specifically defined what we wanted them to show us and what we were looking for, and we have done that in the good thing about the meeting last time is it forced us to lay that out. And I agree with I'm not even going to pretend to know what happened, in 2016 and the different changes with how that fee structure was, because I don't know. So I'm not going to speculate on that, but I do think that it is important that if anyone is going to change their fee structure, that it is brought to the board for approval. To find out after the fact, I understand that is frustrating. One of the things that I think is really important is that we are able to make sure that our administration is confident and comfortable in using any outside consultant. And I feel that our administration is comfortable with Compass and in those conversations, and that relationship is important. It's important, and that's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Hogan?
No, thank you. I did second the motion, and to mirror her image, the contracts do need to be reviewed. They don't need to be indefinite. We need to make sure that we do have oversight in them. What she said was we weren't part of this board in 2016, 2017. We weren't part of the decisions that were not made. So what we can do is go forward and make sure that the right decisions are made.
Okay. Mr. Lovelace?
Well, every time we get to an impasse on these things, you have to realize that there's accountability. And things don't happen in a vacuum. There are companies that work for boards, and maybe they forget the arm's length situation that they should always have. And I know there's two situations that we weren't told the truth with, just recently. And I see the way this is going. It's fine, but there has to be accountability. There has to be people on the line. These are professional people. They're in here to advise. And if people are changing their bid or their quotation schedules right before we do a $30 million bond, then that ought to raise eyebrows. If it doesn't, then I don't know what to tell you, but we need accountability. We don't need all these behind-the-scenes contracts and all these things that were never voted on, and we're coming up. We've seen 7, 8, 9, 10 of them in the last little while. We need somebody to go through this stuff, to look at it, to understand, and if we do hire Compass back, then they need to understand that there's going to be some strong eyeballs on this stuff, and that we are not going to sit there and tolerate, this kind of behavior. And there is accountability, and that's what I don't understand, why we don't place accountability. You vote with your dollars, and accountability has to do with standing up and doing the right thing. So if we're not going to do that, then we're going to put ourselves in the position of being policemen, and that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Ms. Huddle?
So what I'm hearing is that First Tryon on last Monday gave us a proposal that was going to save us $65,000 right out of the gate. And they've given us a proposal that will save us money going forward on most of our bond issuances. But that doesn't matter because our administration is more comfortable with Compass. And that bothers me. Bothers me a lot. That's not the right way to treat the taxpayers. This administration, and I don't mean the one we have today, but as a general rule, has been way too comfortable with too many vendors. And it's that, what do we say to our vendors? That we're not fair? That if you're more comfortable because you're already here, you don't stand a fair chance? I mean, that really bothers me, and I wasn't going to mention it, but people need to go look. Compass is being sued by Berkeley County, and the bulk of the reason they are being sued, and who knows, it's just a lawsuit, not saying it's right or it's wrong, but the bulk of it was that they were too comfortable. And, this vote's going to go however it goes, but I'm very disturbed by this.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, I was going to call on you, Dr. Ross, if you'd like to say something about.
This is the board's decision, so the administration won't get in it, but I do want to question the word comfortable in terms of a relationship with a particular vendor or not. And so while we'll work with any party, I know we've been characterized as being comfortable with one or the other. That's not my take on it. My take is on understanding the model versus learning a model. We will do whatever the board wants, but that word can lean itself to a relationship that is not on board. And I just want to clarify that that's not how I do business. That's not how our administration does business. We say comfortable. I never use that word. It's understanding one model, needing to learn another model. When it comes to what we're trying to do in terms of this administration, in terms of our equity and facilities, learning something is just something that we want to make sure that we're hitting all of our, we don't want to miss anything or make any mistakes. So I just, as we're on the record, want to make sure that we're clarifying with that notion of, I've never used the word comfortable.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Ms. Gardner.
Without calling anybody out specifically, I feel like there was a push from the administration for us to keep with Compass, and that I would like to hear from the opposing votes the reasons that if it doesn't have anything to do with the school district having a desire to stay with Compass, if there's other reasons that you can convince me of, but I would venture to say that the reasons that it didn't pass was because of the desire of the school district to stay with Compass, which some of us feel is not a good place to be. So even though Dr. Ross just said that that's not the reason, I'm pretty sure that there was a lot of push that is the reason. So I'm just wanting to clarify. I think I'm all about full disclosure. I'm not about lying to anybody. So I would like to know what the other three trustees think about, if independent of what the school district wants, if you're making your decision independent of that, or if there is, although we already know that because I'm pretty sure that Ms. Hines already told us that she felt that way. So that's all I'm going to say.
Mr. Hogan had his hand up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to throw some arbitrary numbers out, but Compass, you guys handle roughly 60 school districts in South Carolina? I'm sorry? 63 school districts, and the other firm that we were looking at currently handles 3, I believe, if correct? School districts, correct. Other municipalities, but I do understand that school districts are very unique in how they finance. So that's my decision.
And I'll give mine, but do you want to speak again?
Right, I will say that. I feel like Compass has more experience, and here's the thing. I am not saying that your opinion is wrong I understand the point of view of the other board members, and it isn't an easy decision, but I do believe that Compass has more experience handling school districts, and while some people may not think that that's a big deal, I personally do. What I heard was a lot of, what makes me uncomfortable about this is I don't want to undermine a business and how they present, because I think Tryon, their proposal was great. There are a lot of good things about that proposal. So I don't say this in a way that to insult them or undermine them at all, but they made the comment that they're trying to break into the school districts in South Carolina, and we're basically like a guinea pig on our level for them. And Compass has a good reputation from a lot of different school districts that I have spoken to. And when I say that the administration has made a comment, I mean, Marty and Dr. Ross they both talked to all of us about where they feel comfortable, what their opinions are on all of this, and that makes a difference. I mean, at the end of the day, it does. And I don't necessarily think that what I think is happening right now is maybe some costs are lower right now because they're trying to break into the South Carolina market. And the way that school districts, that was said today, the way that school districts handle their finances in South Carolina are different than they are in North Carolina. And that plays a role into my decision. This isn't an attack on Compass or on Tryon. It is I look at something a little bit differently than other board members, and that is okay.
Thank you. I don't mind at all saying how my reasoning is. I agree about the number of school districts that Compass does. I also agree that what I liked in the presentations, and both were really good. We can't lose either way. But what I liked was the different scenarios from like school districts here in South Carolina. I saw 3 different presentations of ideas, that something that's happened in Greenville or something happened in Horry. This is South Carolina. Our culture is a little different than North Carolina's. That led me to think, again, and I want to say this, I think, and maybe I just believe in people more, I think it's this board that will keep this, whatever vendor we hire. We've had boards with the same leadership for 10 and 12 years. That's probably the people that got real comfortable with people. And I don't think I don't think we need to be accusatory to each other. We're a team. And it's important that we're a team. And we are going to have different ideas. Excuse me. But I teach and I talked all day. But my reasoning is very different. I have faith in this South Carolina company with us having eyes on them, that it is going to be done right. And we aren't going to be comfortable with somebody and we pick them because they've been, they've even maybe done favors or what. Who knows? When somebody's been the leadership in the board 10 and 12 years, that's not very good. And so I'm just not going to throw the whole black eye on Compass if what I have seen is they do good work. And when they presented to me, I saw examples of things I liked. I also liked very much that long-term benefit, that idea of having a debt day that he does with some of his people. And we have a new person that's going to take this over with this company. So I have more faith in this board to not let things go wrong, like have gone wrong. I've sat on a board where I've been a 6-1 vote because I didn't know anything about it. Well, you can't say this about this. We have tried to answer every question. I know Dr. Ross and his staff and these 2 companies, they could not have been more accommodating to this board. And I'm going to say it again. Even if we think different and have different opinions, I am proud of this board. Every one of you. I am. But I have my opinion too, okay? So you asked me to give you my reasons. It's because that's what they do more of, and I think that we can right the wrongs that we may have been done by other boards and leadership and move forward. Yes. Well, I think I saw Ms. Gardner first. Okay.
I'd like to address the do more business in South Carolina. First of all, I didn't think this school district wanted to be like the rest of South Carolina. I thought we were the #1 district, and we wanted to be the best, not just in South Carolina, but in the Southeast. Second of all, I'd like to address one of the reasons that I think that Compass has so much business in South Carolina is that the people that created Compass also created SCAGO. They are the only financial advisor to SCAGO. When our district and every other district borrows money through SCAGO, we pay a sponsorship fee, $500 to $2,000. SCAGO takes all that sponsorship money and they turn around and they sponsor SCAZA, and they sponsor the operations, I can't remember the exact acronym for the operations meeting, and also pretty much all of the board members of SCAGO are made up of superintendents and finance officers. So we have been effectively paying for marketing for SCAGO. And then they turn around and they market at all these meetings. So yes, they are going to be the most common. Compass, because they're tied to SCAGO, is going to be the most common. And I think it's kind of faulty rationale to make a decision that you want to perpetuate that when the whole fee arrangement is, in my belief, what led to that.
Okay. Ms. Gardner, she was next.
Well, and I'm concerned about the fact that, like you said, we're trying to, well, they're so well known in South Carolina, but we didn't give First Tryon enough credit there because they are with Berkeley County, they are Spartanburg 6, they do Riverbank Sioux, and there was a myriad of others that they are involved in, including all of North Carolina. So to me, they have plenty of experience. That is not the question here. Because I think, I'm concerned about the fact that we, as a board, have fought over this bond and millage issue for a couple years now, but we've only gotten Compass to come to the table today. Are we going to fight like that for the next 2 to 5 years? And I will venture to say the people who are looking at the money, looking at it, like studied the numbers. Everybody can say they studied them, but who really studied them are the ones that voted to have more transparency, because we want more hands-on. We want what First Tryon has to offer, not what Compass is offering us, which is a battle to get what we need from them. So that's just my 2 cents on that, but I feel like we discounted the fact that First Tryon's new. They're not new, they're just new to certain aspects of school districts in South Carolina. They do lots of school districts in North Carolina, and they've done a lot of municipalities in South Carolina. And when it comes to borrowing money and funding things, it's all the same. Municipalities are all the same. There's nothing different. So,
Mr. Lovelace.
Mr. Zertak, you live in Kentucky, not in South Carolina? Okay, and you have most of the majority owner in your business? Is there a SCAGO type corporation in Kentucky? Something equivalent to that in Kentucky? Is there something there, or is that just something that's in the nature of South Carolina alone?
There are 2 organizations that have full programs in Kentucky. Actually 3. There's KISTA.
Oh, yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, so what you're asking for is, the question you're asking is SCAGO simply pulls debt together and issues it as a block and provides economies of scale. So what I'm hearing you ask is, are there other entities in the state of Kentucky that do the same thing? And the answer is yes. So KISTA, the Kentucky Interlocal School Transportation Association, has a bus program. We don't represent them, but they have a bus program. The Kentucky League of Cities, we don't represent them, they have a program. And the Kentucky Association of Counties, which we do represent, has their own program. So the concept of an entity pulling debt together and issuing it as a block is not something unique to just the state.
Do you represent, or are you the only, in Kentucky, do you represent, or are the only person that you go through or company that you go through to have access to those things?
Each
So you
Each
are the
program-
person that everybody in Kentucky, just like South Carolina, that you have to go through?
No, we don't represent KISTA, so if you went through KISTA, you would use a different firm.
But you do represent SCAGO, right?
Yes.
And
If
you-
you went
and-
through the Kentucky, let me finish, Hank. Let me finish. If you went through the Kentucky League of Cities program, you wouldn't use our company, you'd use the firm that they're contracted with. And if you went through the Kentucky Association of Counties, then we are their financial advisor. So you would use us if you went through that particular program. So you're asking me if there are other types of essentially SCAGO pool programs in the state of Kentucky, and I'm answering the answer is yes, there are 3, and we represent one of them.
Okay, you represent one of them. Are you the sole representative for that one?
Each one has a single financial advisor.
Okay, so but for the short-term loans in South Carolina through SCAGO, you are the only person that you can go through for that, right? Or your company?
Yes, SCAGO has a contract with our firm and with a bond counsel firm.
Okay, is that one of the reasons why you have more than the lion's share of school district business in South Carolina?
I would say that the reason that we do well in the school district arena is the presentation that I provided in executive session.
So is there a big difference in how financing is done with the Riverbank Zoo or with the Lexington County or any of these other entities that First Tryon uses, other than the fact that SCAGO is involved in this stuff?
I would say that the non-school district, city, county, local government market is more transactional, and there's a larger time differential between transactions. School districts seem to have more capital needs, and they build out more programmatic programs to deal with their needs. So I do believe that there is a difference.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
I think we need to take the vote on this and see where we're going to land. You want to read that again, because we had a lot of conversation since you read it.
I make the motion that we terminate the existing contract with Compass and amend that contract to include a 3-year agreement with a 30-day termination clause and a fee structure clause regarding board approval on any changes in the fee structure.
All those in favor, raise your hand. 3. And all those opposed? 3. So I'll have to ask Ms. White. I know if it's a tie, the motion does not fail. I know that. I mean, the motion does not pass. So what shall we do? We need to call Mr. White. He shouldn't have quit. We'd have 4 or 3 or 7.
I think at this position,
Yeah.
this is going to require me to do some research.
On the contract.
On the issue
Okay.
with the procurement code and the prior contracts and so forth. But I would say that as of this evening, okay, you do have an existing contract with Compass. So for any decisions, and I don't know, I know you've got the refund on the bond. I mean, for any decisions that have to be made immediately and that are time sensitive, that you would utilize Compass for that. And then if what the board may have to do, of course, you've got a special election coming up, so you're going to have a 7th member who will be on the board in 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And so this matter will need to be revisited at that point in time. And of course, you could send out another RFP or RFQ if you wanted to as well, but you've already done that, and you've got the 2 firms. So that's what my recommendation would be. And again, I want to do a little bit of research, because I didn't anticipate that, I probably should have, but I didn't anticipate that there was not going to be any decision. But that's what my opinion would be right now. Until your next meeting, if there's some action that has to be taken by a financial advisor, that it would be Compass.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you were here, Ms. White, to tell us that. And that really is why there's 7 people on boards or 9. It's always uneven, so you don't have a tie. Finalized debt service millage. we have an action on that. Would you like to speak to that, Dr. Ross?
I'll explain, yes, Madam Chair, and if there is any corrections, I'm going to ask our CFO, Ms. Marty Rawls, to correct us, but the operational and debt service millage is due tomorrow. Right now, we have graciously asked for permission to delay. It was actually due last week. We asked permission to get that delayed to Wednesday so that we can have this meeting to select a financial advisor and also to use that advisor to help us set debt service millage. I believe that we should do that in concert. The current letter that we have on the debt service side has us at 73.3 mills. And I believe that we were looking at, we asked our financial advisors, those companies that were under consideration today, to look at the recommendations from the Facilities Committee to include, as we try to build for the East, $50 million borrowing with a $15 million per year 8% capital projects plan, and to help us advise us on how to set that debt service millage. Kind of like the decision now, a no decision means that we go with our existing letter of 73.3 mills. So I would like some direction from the board on how we move forward, given that it is my preference that we take advantage of this great opportunity to provide equity in facilities.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. I just want to tell Dr. Ross, I think we are all excited about your ideas and our Facilities Committee and bringing equity, and so this is very important, how we set this millage.
I'd like to make the motion that we continue the operating millage at 246.1 mills, and that we set the debt service millage at 69.5 mills. That will be a decrease of about 6 mills from where I think it was set from a prior vote.
And Ms. Hines seconds. And so we'll have discussion. Would you like to start it, Mr. Lovelace?
Yes. Dr. Ross has brought us his vision. His vision can basically, in a nutshell, envisions going to the eastern schools and doing some long-needed work there. One of the items that's one of the big headliners on here is an eastern wing, I believe, for Irmo High School. And in order to do that, we had prior to Piney Woods Elementary School a millage rate, and the board approved to pay it off in 3 years, and in March of 2022, that Piney Woods will be paid off. We are cognizant of the fact that we need to give a break to taxpayers, and we are reducing millage, but we also have some long overdue needs in the eastern part of our school district in Irmo, and we intend to honor our commitment to all of our clusters. We have projects in Dr. Ross has presented us scenarios in which all of the clusters have things in them, but but the lion's share of it is in the eastern part of our district in Irmo.
Thank you. Anybody else? You want to, Ms. Huddle, you want to speak to it?
I support that, and not to beat a dead horse, but the irony of it is that the reason I do support it is because First Tryon ran a bunch of scenarios for us live and played with the numbers where we could see that 69.5 was a good number to hit the goals that we had for these schools, maintain a balance for emergencies, and do all of this under various scenarios. We looked at what would happen if our growth slowed or increased. We looked at what would happen if the debt collections, because the auditor uses a 95%. We looked at what if it was 93%. We looked at a bunch of different scenarios. And for me, the end result was that the 69.5 was a good number. And would also, as Mr. Lovelace said, over what the millage is right now, it's a 6-point decrease. So that's, to me, that's a win-win. Our taxpayers get a little break, and we get what we need for our schools.
And it's been a long time that we've had schools in the eastern part of our district that have had great needs. And I certainly hope, Dr. Ross, I think you have shared this with principals, and they're excited, and it's like they actually see, I feel like the public sees what we're doing with the tax dollar.
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to add, too, our next meeting will actually be at Irmo High School, and we are asking the board to do tours at 5 o'clock. You'll do 2 separate groups as not to create a quorum so that you can see some of the issues that we're addressing and how that plan would also address issues like the science lab that was mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Anybody else want to speak to Mr. Lovelace's motion? If not, we'll have a vote on that. All those in favor? Do we need to? We don't need to read it again, do we? Everybody got it? All right, all those in favor? 6 and no opposed. That's exciting for District 5 and the facilities.
Madam Chair, before your motion,
I know what you're going to do.
would the board entertain a motion for an RFP? We have just introduced projects for unencumbered funds, and this is the first discussion of it, but at the next meeting, we could actually take action, and a RFP at this time would allow us to actually hit the ground running should that pass at the next meeting.
Great idea. Do I hear a motion? Didn't you want a motion now?
Yes, ma'am, if we can have it today.
I make the motion that we consider an RFP after discussion at the next meeting for the usage of the millages that we just set.
And the unencumbered funds.
And I apologize, and the unencumbered funds that Mr. Biedenbaugh discussed, when he was at the podium. So that's my motion, sir.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Hogan seconds. Do you need Dr. Ross? Does anybody need Dr. Ross to explain that again? His request?
What this allows us, in talking about rollover contracts, there were some rollover contracts with, I'm not going to name the firm, but a construction firm that handles our yearly capital. This allows us to put out all of the capital projects that were listed as unencumbered. Mr. Biedenbaugh has this as discussion. That would allow us to get those that on the street as advertised, knowing that it still needs a second approval, but we at least would start that process. And then whoever wins the bid would be able in position to work with us. Mr. Biedenbaugh, you want to speak to any details I missed?
Ms. Huddle, you want to say?
Yeah, I have a question, so this is perfect. A lot of these things could maybe be done separately and not necessarily under a general contractor, but I also realize that may be more work for you guys. So is that what you really want, is a general contractor that would do all of these?
Well, some will not require. Some of the projects will not.
So you would pull some of those out?
Yes, ma'am. Some of those we can do on our own, save taxpayer money, but some we will need a new RFP to start the process.
That was the point I was going to make, because you have, looking through your list here, you have items here. I see the last items on the list, and I don't know whether these are on the list because they're building projects that are considered $750,000 and $350,000. Those would seem to be natural fertile ground for general contractor work.
Yes, sir.
But there's a lot of items on here that I don't believe that we would get more bang for our buck if we did not have a general contractor. For example, playground equipment. There are contractors that specialize in that.
We are part of a buying group, the district, that we have 4 different contractors on that
Yeah.
contract. So we wouldn't need a contractor for that. That's already been vetted and procured. So we would just to pick one of the vendors on that, out of those 4 playground companies.
Oh, I mean, you know, the playground contractors would be on that project, general contractors in their own right, you know, on that project.
In their
They
own
wouldn't
right.
be considered, you know, like you would on a larger, much larger project. But I think we get more bang for our buck if we didn't just put out one RFP, and I think that was what Ms. Huddle was asking. I think that was.
Well, and band instruments. I'm sure we're not
Yeah,
going
we general contractors and band instruments don't go together.
What I think that will be brought to us at the next meeting, you know, in clarity as to what we need to put the RFP in. Good, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beatonbaugh. Is that hand back up, Mr. Hogan? Didn't you hear that motion? Oh, I thought we got a vote on that. I'm sorry. I got all excited we were going home. I'm sorry. We had a second. We discussed. All right. Anybody have any other questions on that? Then all those in favor? 6-0. Now, Mr. Hogan, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I see a second from Ms. Hines. All those in favor? Yay. Thank you. Thank you, board. Thank you, people that had to stay.